law of sines and cosines. Unless you did not have geometry last year, then this is new. Okay? So, if it's new, you just might need to spend a little bit more attention. Okay. So we're looking right here. The law of sines is just proportions. Where the law of cosines, I like changing these to angle A, B, and C instead of the Greek letters. I know sometimes we get them mixed up with the sides, but we'll just be clear that the sides are smaller case and the uppercase means angles. Okay, we're going to use these formulas in order to answer these questions. Okay, I am going to do 5 examples, and then you have a bunch of homework to do to practice law of sines and cosines. Yes? Okay, so we're going to look at using the law of cosines to solve problems 1 and 2. Okay, we're going to round to the nearest 10th, and we're going to show all of our work. So some of you who like to skip steps, not for here. Okay, show it all. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this triangle. And I'm going to label all of my sides. I have angle A and little a. See how they're across from each other? Okay, they're opposite. Yeah. B, little b is on the other side. And we have angle C, and little c is across from it. It's number 13. Yeah. Maybe I'll turn the light on it too. That might make it a little brighter. Barely, but it's something. Is that good? Do we want to turn the lights off? Brett, if you turn the light off. Thanks. Okay, so this means no falling asleep, children. All right. So now I am going to find little a because that's between B and C. So that's that line that I'm talking about. So we're going to go up here. We're looking for the law of cosines that has a little a at the front. So I'm going to use this top one. I'm going to rewrite it right here. If you don't have it, because you can't find it, go get a new one. I've got some up here. But we need to be focusing on this now, writing this down, not looking for things. Okay. So I'm going to plug everything in that I have. I have my whole triangle labeled, and now I'm going to plug it into this equation. I don't know little a, so I'm going to bring it down with the square. I know little b is 21 squared, plus little c is 13 squared, minus 2 times 21 times 13 cosine, and I'm going to use it's a capital A, so that's going to be an angle. I'm going to put 105. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the right-hand side of my equal sign. Do we see any letters in anywhere in there? No. So we're going to pick up our calculator, and we're simply going to put this in there, every single thing. I'm going to put 21 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 21 times 13 cosine 105. Okay? And I'm going to bring down the a squared because I don't know that one, equals 751.32. I'm going to round 2, I'm going to just leave it at 3 because it says round to the nearest 10th. What do I do at this point? You square root. So a is going to equal, and I can assume at this point all square roots have a positive and a negative answer, but I can assume that it's going to be positive, right? Because we're not going to have a negative length of a triangle. So a is approximately 4. 27.4 because it says round to the nearest 10th, which just means 1 decimal place. So you'll have lots of them on your sheet today where you just have to find a side using law of cosines. Any questions about this one before we move on to the next? If you're confused about something, now is a great time to ask. Yes, John.
Didn't last year you said like to split up the two?
We're going to do one like that next, John.
I'll do it. Oh.
So this is for when we have everything on the right side of the equal sign, there's no letters. Now we're going to do one where there's not.
I have a question.
Yes.
It says like in the top part.
Mhm.
It only has one formula for
It has 3 for law of cosines and only 1 for law of sines. We'll talk about that. Law of sines can just stick all together like that, or law of cosines, I change it slightly depending on what I'm looking for. Well, it tells me. So let's look at number 2, and you can tell me which one you think we'll use.
So you said if there isn't any letters, just put it all in?
Yeah. Okay, so here is my triangle. I'm going to label all of my sides first. I have angle C, across from that is little c. I have angle A, across from that is little a. Angle B, across from that is little b. What does it tell me I'm looking for? So which one of the 3 am I going to look for? The bottom one, where it says c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. Right? Okay. So that's how I know what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for C, I look for C. Look for A, look for A, B, B. Okay? Now I'm going to plug everything in. I know that little c is 10, so I can put 10 squared equals 15 squared plus 23 squared minus 2 times 15 times 23 cosine c. I don't know my angle. Now, when I look to the right of my equal sign, guys, I see a letter there. So I can't stick all of this in my calculator. So I'm going to do it in parts. Yes?
Why is it times BC up there? Times
Okay. Because in our equation, if when we move from a squared uses bc, but c squared uses ab. Just depends which formula. That's why they're written 3 different times. Okay? So now I'm going to do this in parts. I'm going to find 10 squared first. Then I'm going to put 15 squared plus 23 squared in my calculator. Then I'm going to put negative 2 times 15 times 23. Is anybody taking geometry right now? Okay, you know that your geometry teachers have a secondary equation that you use to find it. You can use that one if you want, and we'll put that one up on the board. I just don't want to confuse everybody by giving you those two right now. But you can totally use that one if you want. Okay, 10 squared is 100 equals, and I'm going to do 15 squared plus 23 squared gives me 754 minus 2 times 15 times 23 gives me 690 cosine c. And you guys see why I can't put those two together? This is like 690x. You can't put 2x and 3 together, right? This has cosine c. It has that letter at the end. I can't stick them together. So what am I going to do now in order to get c by itself? What's my first step?
Subtract 754.
Subtract 754 from both sides. And I get negative 654 equals negative 690 cosine c. And then I'm going to divide negative 654 by negative 690. And I'm going to get 0.9478 equals cosine c. And then I'm going to do what? How do I get rid of a cosine? That negative one, what do we call that? Does anybody remember? Inverse. Inverse. Secant is something different. Cosine inverse 0.9478 equals c. So we take the inverse. So if you hit your trig button again, you'll see cosine, and right below it, it says cosine of negative 1. And we hit 0.9478, and we get angle C equals 18.6 degrees. So I'm going to pause for just 1 second and ask you guys a question. Would you like me to show you the equation where you don't have to do it in steps like this, but can put it all into your calculator?
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to look funny for a second, but we've got c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. I am going to solve this for cosine c. And I'm going to, because I want you to see where it comes from, and then you can just use that equation. Okay? So I am going to subtract a squared and b squared from both sides. Okay? And then I'm going to divide negative 2ab on both sides. It's kind of hard to follow, but I'm doing the exact same thing I did without numbers. I know sometimes when you have letters here, it makes it confusing, but that's what I'm doing. Okay? So I've got c squared minus a squared minus b squared all over negative 2ab equals cosine c. And then to undo cosine, I use the inverse. So we could just plug everything straight into there, and I wouldn't have to do any algebra. This is one of those things that you can memorize. We can find it for, this is for C. We can find it for A and B as well. Let's see if I can do it without solving. Okay, so it'd be cosine negative 1 again. But instead of c squared minus a squared minus b squared, it would be all over negative 2bc. And then it would be cosine of negative 1 to give us b. It would be minus c squared, right? Minus 2ac. So you can use these equations instead. If you want to do, it's just more things you're going to have to memorize. So you can either memorize 3 or memorize 6. If you memorize 3, you do it just the way I did, where you're solving it. If you memorize 6, you can just plug these in.
Then why do they have to memorize the first 3? Yeah, we have those.
If you have those, you have to memorize 6. Because 3 of them, if you're solving for a side, you have to use this one. If you're solving for an angle, you have to use these. So I have 3 for angles, 3 for sides. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can I see the rest for equation number 2 really quick so I can copy it?
After I'm done with the next ones, because I have to turn it over. I don't want to waste more paper. But yes, when I'm finished. Okay? So, if they're a capital letter, you're looking for an angle. If they're lowercase, you're looking for a side, right? I'm going to put this up again at the end if you guys want it. But I'm going to move on to law of sines because I want to make sure we have enough time for you guys to practice some of this stuff on your own. Okay. Law of sines. Miss Murphy speaking. Yep. Bye. Maya, I guess you're being signed out, so instead you're going to have to watch this video. Okay. All right. We're going to look at law of sines, guys, and I like to write it at the top that I'm looking at sine A over little a equals sine B over little b equals sine C over little c. Because I don't like flipping my paper back and forth. Okay? So, the first thing I'm going to do is label my triangle just like I did for the last one. Angle A is little a. Angle C across from that is little c. Angle B is little b. What's nice, I know there are 3 things per sine, A, B, and C, but we're only going to use 2 out of the 3. Okay? So, I'm looking for side AB. Side AB is C, correct? Which other one do I have an angle and a
The
side?
following students need to report to the West Side Media Center at this time to complete their senior exit surveys. Adrian Allen,
So we're going to use A.
Selena Amadou, Nicholas
Okay.
Barnett,
So that's sine A over little a
Miles
equals
Payne,
sine
Jacob
C
Campbell,
over little c.
Kevin Davis.
You're never going to need all three.
Juwan Frazier, Hannah
Okay.
Henry, Shania Kearney Page, Faith Lee Rivers.
And then from
Blake
here, we're going to
McKenzie,
plug it in.
Max Mason, Layla Moon.
Side
Lisa
angle
Maury,
65
Kendra Park, Austin
over
Ragsdale,
37
Keith Ringer, Brian Rivera,
equals sine 57
Autumn Scourin, Darius Smith,
over c.
Elizabeth Smurda, Brianna Stafford, Megan Stalmaker,
Questions about plugging that in?
Elizabeth
Yeah.
Stanley, Michaela Thomas, Josh
There's a way.
Burgess, Ashley
We're good
Warford,
plugging it in?
and Tayana Young
Oh, yeah.
Joyner. Again, please report to the West Side Media Center at this time.
So now that they're plugged in, we're going to cross multiply.
That's what I thought.
We get c sine 65. I multiplied these two together. And equals 37 sine 57. I highly recommend not putting anything into the calculator till the very end. Now I'm going to divide both sides by sine of 65. These cancel, right? Because that gives me 1. So c equals, I'm going to put this in my calculator. The only thing I want you guys to make sure is either you make a fraction or you put this in parentheses when you put it in. Okay? So I've got my fraction button, which is control divide, or I put it in parentheses. 37 sine 57 over sine 65. And it gives me 34.2 because it says round to the nearest 10. And that's it. The whole thing.
That's it.
So I just put this in my calculator, this part right here. Just make sure you put it like I did with parentheses and you'll be good. Shh, you guys, we still have 2 more questions to go. I need your silence. Unless you're asking a question. Yes, Alex.
Why would you use A and C rather than B and C?
Well, B and C I don't want to use because I don't have an angle for B or a side for B. If I had a side for B, I could figure out, because the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180, what the angle is. But since I don't have that side, I don't want to use it. All right, let's look at number 4. We're going to do it with angles now. Okay? I'm going to label little c, little b, little a. I'm looking for angle B, so I have to use B. Which other one has an angle and a side? C's, correct? Okay. So I'm going to say side B over little b equals sine C over little c. Okay? Again, you don't need to write this each time. I just like to write it at first so you guys know where they go. Okay? So I'm going to say sine B, my angle I don't know,
Is it?
over my side is 16. We don't know that. I know it looks like it could be 90 degrees, but these are not drawn to scale. I use the same triangle for everything. I just stick in different numbers. It's harder to do that, and it's not a scale drawing. We're not an engineer. Okay, equals sine 32 over 22. Okay, so I get 22 sine B equals 16 sine 32. I divide that by 22, and I get something funky. I get sine B equals 16 sine 32 over 22. How do I get rid of a sign?
Do the one verse.
Inverse. So I'm going to get B equals sine with a little -1, 16 sine 32, make sure we have parentheses around that, divided by 22. So I hit the trig button, inverse sine. I like to make it into a fraction by hitting control divide. 16 sine 32 divided by 22. And I get B equals 22.7, because I'm rounding, degrees. How are we doing? you have a question, Liana? Yes.
How do you know when you need to use inverse?
So see how I had a letter right next to the sign? Then I need to use the inverse. If I don't, like the previous one, where I could get C all by itself, I didn't need to use it. So it's all about where the letters locate. Remember, if the letter is after SIN, you're going to have to use inverse. If it's before, you don't need to. All right, let's do the last problem on the back, guys. Shh.
We're talking about math.
I understand that, but unless you're willing to say it out loud so I can have it on my recording, I would rather you not whisper it. Okay. We're going to do one more. All right. And then I'll let you work for the rest of the time on your homework. All right. I will go over the test. Okay. How am I going to figure this out? I need to find BC, which is A. But I only have one side, but I don't have that angle. Or I have one angle and don't have that side. What am I going to do?
You can find C.
How can I find C?
Because it all ends up 180.
180 minus 59 minus 26 gives me,
95.
where is 180? 180 is just something I know. I know
That's
the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180. Okay, so this is 95. So I'm going to use C. Right? So I'm going to say sine of A over little a equals sine C over little c. So I get what? Who wants to plug it in for me? Go ahead, Steve.
It would be sin 26
Okay.
over A
Yep.
equals sin 95
Mhm.
over 88.
Good. Who wants to do the next step? What am I going to do? Go ahead, Gary. Cross multiply. Okay. Anybody want to tell me what I'm going to write down?
A sine 95
Good, Lawrence.
equals 88 sine 26.
Okay. Right now, do you think I'm going to have to use an inverse? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. What is my next step?
Divide by sine 95.
Plug it into your calculator. $38.7 is what I get. Okay, let me be clear about this because I know you don't all have calculators at home that do this. You can get to here and then stop if you want full credit on your homework. Now your homework, I want to be clear about this, asked is way more work than you think it is. It's not just 9 problems on the front. It's asking you for everything. Number 8 is asking you to find angles B, C, and side BC. Okay? So you have to find 3 things for every single triangle. Okay? So you need to do the front and the back. Okay? To find them.
I'm going to be sick.
You can choose to use either law of sines or law of cosines. This last problem that we did here, we did law of sines. We could have done the whole thing for law of cosines instead. Okay? All right. So, I'm going to stop recording. I am going to ask people that did not take their test to step out in the hall. And then we will pass back.